Shirey, the Beard, joined by my compatriot,
the Bald, Chris Bumbrae. Hello,
bald,
everyone.
And I have a beard. So today we are here at Sundance 2019, reunited at last. Last time we saw each other was for Ant-Man at Fantasia Fest.
Years ago.
Which was quite a while ago. We just now got out of Velvet Buzzsaw, the new one from Dan Gilroy. Chris?
I hated it. I really didn't like it. Yeah. I was expecting it to be great. I think that trailer is really well cut and misleading, terribly misleading. I think that 90% of the audience that love the trailer are going to despise this movie. But then, you know, there's that 10% that are going to think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to think it's something great, it's something wonderful, and it's...
They'd be wrong, obviously. No,
it'd be a lot like the character that Jake Gyllenhaal plays in the movie or something. Like, some people just love it, some people hate it. I didn't hate it, but it was...
It's like trying to be a Robert Altman movie, but like mixed with this kind of art house horror vibe that the director just doesn't really have a good handle on. I don't think he knows how to make a horror movie. And it wasn't really scary. It's
too playful. It's really, really playful. And I thought for a second, I was like, this is almost like a Tim Burton movie, but it wasn't quite weird enough to be a Tim Burton movie. And then I was like, well, it was more like a Tales from the Crypt episode or something.
That's exactly what it was like. It was like a Tales from the Crypt episode, and they try to have it both ways. You know, they try to be this kind of critique of the art world, a satire, a comedy, but then they try to turn it into a horror movie in the last act, and it just doesn't work. And also, you're not invested in anybody because everybody's just a cartoon character.
And it's really, the comedy is good, like there's a lot of funny bits, but it takes away from you taking anything seriously for the rest of the film. So you're just kind of like,
But you know, some of the performances are good. I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was excellent.
He's really funny. He was cool. I mean, he was a fun character.
Yeah, he was fun, heightened, you know, and you know, John Malkovich is kind of a small role for him though.
I love John Malkovich.
I do too.
But you know, you should always listen to John Malkovich because if you saw Bird Box, you know. You should listen to John Malkovich.
Yes. And you know, he seemed like he does okay in this one compared to everybody else.
Yeah. Spoilers. Anyways, you guys will watch it on Netflix. It drops on Friday, right?
Yeah, it drops Friday, and I can see why they're rushing this one out right after.
If we have this podcast up, then you will have already heard it. Chris is going to do his review tonight, of course, and he'll have a video review up as well. And that's it.
That's a wrap.
So tomorrow we're going to see...
Fighting with My Family.
Fighting with My Family. So maybe we'll do another one of these to add into that. I don't know how it's going to go, but it should be fun. And yeah, make sure to check out Chris's reviews from Sundance on JoeBlow.com. And, you know, enjoy the rest of the podcast.
And I'm going to bed.
All right, guys. So here we are here in Sundance. As you can see, the Beard and the Bald together. We do both exist. And we are here. We just had a lovely, lovely lunch.
We did.
The same lunch.
Paul paid.
I paid.
Very genteel of him. I
gotta keep Chris fed. I gotta keep him going since I make him stay for the whole thing. But anyways, that was our reaction to Velvet Buzzsaw. I think my reaction pretty much stands the same. I'm not a fan. I think some people will be a fan, and I've thought about it since, and I probably thought less of it the more I've thought of it. Chris, has anything changed for you?
Well, you know, the condo that I'm staying at has about 9 other bloggers, right? And most of them really liked it. You know, I stand by it. You know, I'm cool on the movie. I think part of it works. I think that when it's a satire of the artwork and art world in LA and it's more of a comedy, it really works. It's when the horror elements come in that it doesn't work for me. And, you know, I thought some of the dialogue was very witty, but I don't think that Dan Gilroy necessarily knows how to make a movie that blends up the genres in as provocative a way as they were probably hoping that they would. So I think it all kind of falls flat. Then again, I mean, I respect the effort, and I'm glad that Netflix will allow a mashup like this to get made on a big scale. But that said, I didn't particularly care for it, but I know that there are a lot of other people that did like it. So, you know, it could potentially be a cultish type movie, but
I think that's a very accurate thing. And you said something too when it was over. You said, "Well, it's a Netflix movie."
Yeah, well, I mean, just the fact is, you know, when I said it's a Netflix movie, it's the fact that, you know, these directors, they often get carte blanche, I guess, and they can do whatever they want, and they can kind of unhinge themselves. It's funny, we're going to get to it a little bit later, but Zack Snyder signed on to do a Netflix movie this week, and he said it's the first time I've ever been totally unshackled, right, to do whatever he wants.
Which is pretty much what he's been trying to do.
And you think, though, like 300 wasn't him unshackled, you know, and it's, but, the Sucker Punch, but, you know, they do kind of take these big swings on directors, and I think sometimes the results, oftentimes the results aren't great. You know, like I could think of Mute. I can think of definitely Hold the Dark. I mean, I think that's a really bad one. But then again, you know, sometimes the results are excellent, and you know, Roma is one of them. I think
Roma, Beasts of No Nation,
Beasts of No Nation, another really good movie. You know, and
so at least I think if anything, like movies like Velvet Buzzsaw, it's like. I didn't care for it, but at the same time,
there's stuff in them that works.
But I'm happy that like that outlet exists, because there's no way Velvet Buzzsaw would play in theaters. It would bomb tremendously.
No.
But at least like these types of films can still be made. They're more experimental. They're a little crazier. It didn't work for me, but that doesn't mean that.
And I'm happy
they should stop making them.
And I'm happy that Soderbergh is making movies with them. You know, that he's got High Flying Bird about to drop for them. You know, I didn't see it, unfortunately, but you know, I'm happy that movies like that exist, and you know, and I like these directors, and I hope they keep making stuff. And you know, it's I think it's considering the way studios are going now, where it's only like these tentpole movies being made, let them take some swings. That said, I kind of wish that some of these directors would maybe be a little bit more collaborative or something, and you know, there's almost like some kind of oversight is needed to a degree.
Have somebody step in and be like, wait, just one second, can we watch that
but first? Then again, sometimes, you know, you don't get that, and you get Roma, which I think is, you know, a masterpiece, and you know, I'm hoping that The Irishman is going to be the same story, and there are a lot of really interesting movies coming out next year on Netflix, you know, like the J.C. Shander one with Ben Affleck.
Triple Frontier.
Triple Frontier, you know, The Last Thing He Wanted with Anne Hathaway and Ben Affleck. That's a new D. Rice movie. You know, so there's a lot of stuff that looks really good.
Yeah,
that's coming out. You know, and these are movies that would have never gotten made by somebody else.
Yeah. So, and you know, and that's always been the thing that I've championed with Netflix, or even Amazon Prime for that matter. Although they're not really, they're more about buying movies than making them.
It's a little bit different because they buy movies. They do make some movies, but these movies tend to get theatrical play too, though, and then they show up on the platform. I still don't quite understand their business model, because it seems like a lot of the movies tanked, and they were spending so much money at Sundance this year, like it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know, but honestly, like I'm glad.
Yeah,
I feel like Netflix at this point, they have proven to be a viable source of entertainment.
Sure.
Both with their shows and now with their films. It feels like the films, even if they're not all that great, not every single one of them is a hit or great, you know, something that you love. The fact that they're still pushing forward and that it's progressing. It's not like, oh, that didn't work.
I mean, you know, Bird Box is a good example of it. You know, that movie really connected with people. So, you know, if they could do more of that, more blockbusters, you know, it's to mix in with their kind of auteur cinema, you know, it'd be interesting. You know, I do appreciate everything that they do, and I'm glad they exist as well.
So you've seen a lot since you've been here.
I have. I've
tortured you and made you watch.
It's a pretty easy.
So many movies.
It's a pleasure. I've filed 15 reviews so far. Wow. But then I blew Paul away when I told him I've got like another 7 or 8.
I know. I'm like moving them in the Joe Blow back end. I'm like shuffling them around. I'm like, oh fuck, because trying to do 2 a day.
Yeah.
Actually, we're gonna post another one here shortly, but
there's almost too much. Yeah. I mean, you know, I've seen some great movies. It's funny though. Whenever I stay at the festival, it always kind of happens that way. The first weekend comes, and I think this is the greatest festival ever, because I'm seeing nothing but like these amazing movies that are getting bought by tons of money. But then as the festival goes on, the not as great movies start to premiere, and I'm coming off, I guess, a string of not great ones. The one that we just saw was pretty bad. Corporate Animals.
I may as well talk about that one now.
Yeah, by the guy who did the Overnight and Creep, both movies that I really liked. But this one, it's about a company retreat that gone wrong. It's like The Office meets The Descent, and yeah,
but not quite as good as
not
either
quite
one
as
of
good
those.
as either of them, and just kind of, you know, some funny moments, but
yeah,
I was more entertained by the crazy person sitting next to me who kept talking back to the screen.
Oh God, and there were people that were in our screening that they were just laughing, and I was like,
yeah,
this is not funny.
I know,
like,
it's
just
weird.
Dumb.
I think the altitude has gotten to people though,
maybe,
and the lack of sleep. Maybe
Corporate Animals is just a weird movie. Yeah. I think some people will catch it probably on Netflix and they'll be like, oh, that was actually pretty cool. It was like really weird, and it is, but it's not weird enough and it's not cool enough to really be anything special, because everything that happens you can pretty much predict based on the tone and everything. You're like, you know, everything that's going to happen for the most part.
What you said,
it never surprises us. There's no real surprises.
What you said when we were walking out, I think, is pretty accurate. Is if it was to show up on streaming, you don't think you would have finished it. I really don't think I would have finished it. No,
because like even like the first 5 minutes before they even got to the title screen, I was like,
I don't know if it's
this
gonna
is
work.
not coming together already. I was like not excited. And then I was just like, yeah, as soon as we left, I was like, man, within the first 20 minutes, because hardly anything happens in the first 20 minutes, and you don't have an indicator of where it's really going. You know what I'm saying?
And when it does happen,
boring.
and when it does happen, it's like, okay, so that happened.
And you're like, yeah, big surprise there. So, Corporate Animal's not exactly the best Sundance fare.
Yeah,
for
you
me.
know, and I saw another one yesterday that wasn't great either, called Wounds with Armie Hammer and Zazie Beetz and
that's
and
a
Dakota
horror.
Johnson.
Wounds is a horror movie,
it's
right?
by the guy who did Under the Shadow, which I really liked, and it's Annapurna's putting out in March. But it's another one that's just a misfire, you know. Although there's interesting things in it. However, I have to say I've seen some absolutely amazing movies here this year. Really great movies that have gotten picked up. So I would say probably my favorite so far is The Nightingale. That's Jennifer Kent's new movie. I was telling Paul, yeah, Babadook, but very different. Duke, but very different because it's not a horror movie. It's basically about this woman who's an indentured servant in Tasmania in 1820. So basically, what it is she's a convict, and her and the rest of the indentured servants are all convicts. And then what happens is they get bought essentially by army officers to work for them as indentured servants, and they have a term that they have to work, and then when the term is over, they get their freedom. They're supposed to get their freedom. And this woman basically is, you know, she was a thief, and she's working for Sam Claflin's army officer, and she's married now to another convict who recently got his release, and now she's supposed to get her release, but he doesn't want to let her go, but things go horribly, and within the first 20 minutes of the movie, her husband and her baby are both dead.
Damn.
And she's been raped twice by, you know, the group, and then she sets off into the Tasmanian wilderness after them to try and kill them. And she brings an Aboriginal guide with her. But she's also a product of her time, extremely racist, extremely, you know, cruel to the guide. And that's the thing that's the beauty of the movie is that, you know,
it's honest.
It is honest to what it was. She's not an idealized character, and she's not badass either. You know, there's a scene in the movie where she manages to get her comeuppance on one person, and it freaks her out, and she's not the same the rest of the movie. And it's one of those things. It's like you may get your chance at revenge, but you may not be able to take that chance. You may not have what it takes to take that chance. It may not be in you. And it's brutal. It's unsparing. And what it does is, one of the things I think that's going to be very controversial about the movie is that it's not necessarily just her story. Sam Claflin's character in the film, you really follow him and his men as they're trying to survive this trail, and you have to be there with them for every atrocity they do. When they kill Aboriginals, they kidnap an Aboriginal woman and rape her and bring her along with her. They're horrible men, but they don't flinch. They make you watch everything, you know, and it makes it a very uncomfortable movie to watch. And I know that apparently I was talking to somebody passed out. Somebody passed out.
Yeah. Well, we were leaving Corporate Animals, and I saw this. Hey, look, and that's exactly what I thought. I was like, somebody might have passed out at a screening,
and a guy too. So let's not be stereotypical. Yeah, and it was. But she's an amazing director, Jennifer Kent. But this would have made Sam Peckinpah blush, I think. And it's a heavy movie, but I'm really glad I saw it, and I think it's a masterpiece. I also really love this movie called Blinded by the Light,
the Springsteen one.
Yeah, so this is basically by the director of Bend It Like Beckham. Okay, and it's about a Pakistani boy in the UK in 1987 whose life isn't going very well. He wants to get from underneath the thumb of his father, who's very traditional, and you know he can't really lead his life. There's a lot of racism too. The National Front skinheads are giving him a hard time. You know, he's a Pakistani in London.
Right.
But then one of his friends gives him a Springsteen tape, and he listens to this. And even though it was written by a guy halfway across the world in Jersey about working class people in Jersey, the lyrics just resonate so deeply with him.
Yeah.
You know, and you see whenever he listens to the song, you see the lyrics come up on the screen, so you can know exactly what it is that hits him. You know, at one point it says, "No, sir, I'm not a boy, I'm a man," and it's just like things like that. And he manages to really get, you know, a lot of, you know, confidence, and it gives him the courage to do things that he never thought he could do, and it changes his life listening to the music of Bruce Springsteen. And you know what it is, it's not necessarily just a movie about Bruce Springsteen. Yes, it's full of Springsteen music because he gave them the rights to his entire catalog, I guess, and you hear like a lot of times Born to Run and Dancing in the Dark, you hear almost the whole version of these songs. But it's also probably one of the best movies I've ever seen about fandom in general, because if you look back at your formative years, maybe it wasn't Springsteen, maybe it was Star Trek, maybe it was Star Wars, maybe it was Marvel, maybe it was James Bond. You know, I was telling Paul it was Depeche Mode for me, you know, and it's just that thing though, that spark, that thing that kind of like lit a spark in you and set you off. You know, it was actually probably the James Bond movies for me, if I have to be completely honest.
James Bond movies.
Yeah, and Connery is too, but you know, it's just these movies did kind of light the spark in me though, and that's what this movie does. It really kind of shows you the positive side of fandom and how these people could kind of affect you, and also how kind of horrible it is sometimes when your friends don't get what it is that you don't love. Like his best friend in the movie doesn't get Springsteen. And a lot of people don't understand. Like, well, why do we don't get it? It's almost horrifying, right? Like, how do you not understand this? How do you not get it? But it shows how relevant these were and how personal these lyrics were to the guy. And it's based on a real guy's life, and the guy is messaging me on Twitter. He's been to see Springsteen 57 times in concert. His Twitter photo is a photo of him and Springsteen together.
Oh wait, so this is a true story?
Yeah, a true story.
Oh,
and what's really funny is the credits at the end of the movie. The director too, she's with Bruce Springsteen and stuff like that. So clearly he was like involved somehow with the movie.
That's funny.
He didn't come to the premiere because I think he said that he didn't want to take attention away from the film. I really loved it, and it got bought by Warner Brothers and New Line for like $15 million. So I guess they're going to give it a big release.
That sounds like a theatrical push.
And it's also, people were talking a lot about diversity too. This is something though that you don't see much, about Pakistani boy. It's you don't see that side of Asian culture, right? You see another side, but you don't see that. And but it's also a mainstream movie, and it's universal, and it could kind of hit anybody, right? I think you don't have to be from a certain demographic to get it. Another one I really loved was The Report, which is based on the torture report, and that was bought by Amazon for $17 million. I think that's an awards caliber movie. I think Adam Driver is going to for sure be up for Best Actor.
Who is the director for The Report?
Scott Z. Burns, I believe.
Scott Burns, okay.
Yeah, so it's a pretty fascinating movie. They talk about this report and the enhanced interrogation techniques that they used, and the movie makes the argument that the interrogation techniques didn't really serve a purpose in the end, that it was an experiment that was almost understandable because you were desperate, but that the results didn't really speak for themselves, and nobody really wanted to fess up to it, and they were just contrasting the different types of ways of using intelligence. And it ends with a really interesting speech by John McCain, and it also tries to be a bipartisan movie as well. It doesn't necessarily demonize the right or the left, and it ends with kind of an impassioned speech by John McCain, who was a victim of torture himself when he was a POW, saying that as a people we need to be better than this. And it's fascinating to watch. I mean, I'd be interested to hear your perspective on it, especially
I'd like to see it.
as somebody who
I
was over
tortured
there.
so many people.
I know, you tortured me just before the podcast. But it was
it's not my job to torture anybody. But we did work with people that was their job.
I mean, I'd be fascinated to hear your thoughts on it. But I have to say, it was a great movie. Annette Bening as Diane Feinstein, John Hamm, Ted Levine, who I always love. As Brennan, the director of CIA, so many good actors, and Jennifer Morrison too, really good part. Loved it. I thought it was a fantastic movie. Also, I saw Late Night that got picked up. I thought it was good. I think it's slightly
but you didn't
overrated.
Love it, though.
I think it was slightly
you
overrated. I was surprised to hear that Amazon bought it for $14 million or something like that.
Late Night ultimately not great to you. Okay.
I don't really understand why it necessarily got picked up. To me, it was just one of those movies that was, it was good. I liked it though. I mean, I gave it a good review. I like Mindy Kaling a lot. Emma Thompson's really good in it. Perfectly acceptable movie. Fine.
Is it just like kind of a studio comedy kind of thing, or?
Yeah, it's accessible. It's an accessible movie. It was nice to watch after watching a lot of heavy movies together. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good movie, to a degree. But I don't think that it necessarily deserved to be a $14 million acquisition. Another one that I saw that I really liked was that I haven't reviewed yet is The Farewell with Awkwafina.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was a pretty good movie too. She basically is a woman who goes back to China to take care of her grandma who's dying. But the thing is, the culture is they won't let her know that she's actually dying. So it's a secret that they keep, and it's like a cultural type thing that they go into, and it's a pretty interesting take on something that I'd never seen before. And A24 picked it up. That was a good movie, and I saw one with Pete Davidson the other day that I liked a lot too, called Big Time Adolescence. Pete Davidson, I know he rubbed some people the wrong way. I really liked him in this movie because it's just he is that charismatic guy that basically in the movie he's a 23-year-old guy who's best friends with a 17-year-old and kind of gets him into like dealing pot and stuff like that. Normally that would make the character horrible, but there's just some kind of weird charm that Pete Davidson has in the part, and it's like if you ever wanted to see like potential of a guy breaking out as a star, and they just announced too.
Well, yeah, just did something. Yeah, he's going to do something with Judd Apatow.
Judd Apatow is directing, kind of like his life story, I guess.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I really liked that one too. So I've seen a lot here that I really liked, to be honest.
And there's still more to come that we haven't posted.
The Lodge with Riley Keough by the directors of Goodnight Mommy as well. That's a really good one. That to me was like this year's Hereditary. Neon picked it up. I could see that one scaring the crap out of people.
And that was a midnight screener too, wasn't it?
I really liked it. I love Riley Keough as well. Elvis's granddaughter, she's very beautiful, but she's a great actress as well. I think that movie too, very good.
So we also saw another movie together. We saw a couple. We saw Velvet Buzzsaw. We saw Corporate Animals. But we also saw Fighting with My Family, which is the Dwayne Johnson produced movie about Paige, the wrestler, WWE wrestler Paige, which is kind of her life story about basically her coming up, as a kid and really being into wrestling and doing it amateur in England, and then basically getting her shot. And it was basically kind of a Rocky story, which I think we both really enjoyed. So why don't you take a look at our thoughts directly from that screening? Hey guys, Beer in the Bald here. We just got out of the Fighting with the Family screening here at Sundance. Here with my boy Chris Bumbray. So Chris, what did you think?
I really liked it. I'm not a wrestling fan at all. I actually probably couldn't pick Paige out of a lineup, to be quite honest. But no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. I like Stephen Merchant. He brings the right amount of heart to the film, I think. I was invested in the family. I was invested in the character. Like the whole cast, Nick Frost, Lena Headey, Vince Vaughn, I thought was good as the trainer. The Rock's in it very little, but I thought it was a pretty entertaining mainstream movie. And,
It's very mainstream, but I think in a good way. I think that it actually. I think we need more movies like this. It's more of like a positive kind of
family movie.
Yeah, it's like that, but it also it's inspirational in the ways that we need movies. We need movies like this. You know what I'm saying? It's like the Rockies and everything else.
So people want to wrestle. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like Eddie the Eagle and things like that. Where it's like the underdog tale, and I don't know. I'm kind of a sucker for that, just like anybody else. But what else I got out of it too is it really made me want to see more movies about kind of the wrestling, like the behind the scenes of the wrestling.
Well,
I don't watch WWE. I used to as a kid, but I don't watch it now, and I understand and respect that people are really into it and they love it. But I
watched it when I was a kid, but it does make me think that there is a certain kind of pageantry to it, and I think the film does kind of get into that. It's not necessarily I think the outcomes are decided long before they ever go into a match, but I found entertaining kind of insight into the world. Although it is definitely myth building, they make it seem as though it's an actual match, So it does kind of play into a myth.
In the Rocky vein kind of thing.
It plays into the myth of the WWE, but I think it was pretty effective.
Yeah. So
it's not beyond the mat, but it's good.
But I really dug it. I thought it was great. And I don't know. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to warm up to audience.
Sure.
I think they're going to really dig it.
And I think that
definitely give my recommendation.
Dwayne Johnson is going places.
I think Dwayne Johnson might actually be a star. I think he has some potential. He showed some real charisma in this, and I don't know. Maybe they get one of the Fast and Furious movies or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe one day he'll be the next Vin Diesel.
It could happen. Could happen. Anyways, enjoy the rest of the podcast. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye, Chris. Okay, so that was our reaction to Fighting with My Family. I still feel very much the same. I've actually thought more about it since then, and I think it was just a really enjoyable movie. The one thing I think that it could have helped it, they could have thrown a little more meat on the bones in terms of getting behind the scenes with WWE, and I think that they skate around a lot of things, whether or not fights are actually staged or not. Right, and I felt like they cut that stuff down a little bit too much because people know that this stuff is staged. They even address it in the movie. They're like, it's it's fiction. Well, the Vince Vaughn gives that whole speech of this is entertainment, but you have to be convincing of it and all that other stuff. So when she gets her title shot and everything, I felt like we should have. There's no way that she gets told that the next day she's going to be in this match. They would have rehearsed that match. They would have done everything. And the way the movie presents it is hey, you're going to get this shot tomorrow, and that's it. Yeah, that's a little. It's kind of it is though, but they're going for kind of the Rocky formula, I think, a little bit. But I'll say this: probably the best thing I could say about Fighting with My Family is that somebody asked me on Twitter, if you're not a wrestling fan, will you still like this movie? And I can tell you, I'm not a wrestling fan at all. Nor am I. And I still really enjoyed the movie. I had a great time watching it. I gave it an 8 on 10. I stand by that. Vince Vaughn is great in it.
And then there's that young actor, The Rock, who I think maybe has a career outside of wrestling.
Yeah. I think The Rock he could do something.
He's barely in it, though, I have to say. The Rock, the trailers make it seem like he's in it more than it is, but you won't really care. Florence Pugh is great in it. I like Jack Lowden as well as her brother. I thought he was very good. Nick Frost is funny. I love Lena Headey. I've had the biggest crush on Lena Headey ever since the Stephen Sommers version of The Jungle Book with Jason Scott Lee.
Oh man, you're going way back.
I think Lena Headey is one of the most
I felt like 300 was one of the ones that really.
Oh my god! Well, I love that.
And then she did look amazing in Dread as well.
Yeah.
So hot
with the scar. I actually thought it was kind of hot, to be honest.
No, you like the mangled teeth
in a weird way. I always have had a bit of a crush on Lena Headey, though.
Yeah, it's understandable. She's a lovely woman, but I stand by my initial reaction, and I think it's good.
Yeah.
I do think that it could use a little more style. I don't think that Stephen Merchant is that adept of a director in the style sense, and I think it really could have used that. And I also think that and this was actually something that my girlfriend mentioned when we talked about it on the way back, which I think is a very good point, is that she was annoyed by the fact on the big match where she does the thing, she comes out and she's wearing like kind of a little more like subdued outfit, like not quite the bikini type stuff that she did actually wear.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend was annoyed by that because she was like, why are they changing that? And trying to tell us like, oh, like this is like a Me Too thing or something where like we're not going to show her as to what she would really wear. And she wanted to see them address like the sexuality aspect of these because they are sexualized.
And then having to embrace that, I guess.
And exactly, and having to embrace it rather than try and treat it like it's a negative thing and they did touch on a little, which my girlfriend mentioned as well, where, the other girls that were models and stuff were teaching her how to walk. How to strut, how to do that stuff. So I think in one way it's kind of a negative against it in that they try to present it like she's just like the same old girl, but she's not really. Because she made a transition into embracing a new identity as a wrestler rather than just being herself.
I think, though, when you get a Stephen Merchant movie, you're never going to necessarily have it being something that's going to challenge anything. Like, I think he makes kind of mainstream movie. I think that's his sensibility.
Pretty
but I will say,
issue comedy.
I will say this though, he's
very funny.
Yeah, he's funny, and he's also very warm. And to me, if I look at him and Ricky Gervais together, Ricky Gervais, since he broke up with Stephen Merchant, I haven't liked anything that he's done, to be honest. And I used to love Ricky Gervais, and I think that he lacks Merchant's heart. I think that he's so you get with Ricky Gervais, you get the cynicism, right, and the ice and the venom. But then without Merchant's heart, it just throws everything out of whack, and that's why I thought two of them were amazing together on their own. Merchant, I think, is fine on his own, but Gervais on his own, I just don't think can really sustain it, and so I like the Merchant touch in the movie.
Yeah, it's definitely an emotional kind of like, I don't want to say happy movie in that way, but inspirational. I felt inspired, and I liked seeing her story. I thought it was cool. So. Fighting with My Family, definitely the better film I've seen here at Sundance for my first ever film festival. Chris will have more coming soon.
Much more.
So you can watch for those on JoBlo. But now it is time to talk about some movie news. We did have a few things happen this week. Chris has been busy.
I know. I'm totally out of it. The only thing I've really been keeping an eye on are the acquisitions out of Sundance, because the thing is, when something got acquired, I'd be like, oh shit, I need to see it because it's going to come out theatrically and stuff. Like, there's one that I wasn't going to watch. Brittany Runs a Marathon with Jillian Bell that just got bought by Amazon, 14 million. Yeah, so I'm seeing it now. So I'm getting up at 7 tomorrow morning to go see it early.
Oh, yeah. I don't function at that. Well, that's not true. I get up to work, but
like at 5.
I'm not leaving the house or anything.
So I'm getting up to see it first thing in the morning. I think it'll be good. I'm here. That's my job.
That's right.
It's gonna be. I think it'll probably be a good movie. I find she has a lot of charm. So
maybe that's her. Maybe it's her big breakout.
And it's funny because I was talking to people about it, and like she went through a major metamorphosis for the movie too, right? She lost a ton of weight, and and it's about somebody who like decides to get in shape and stuff. And I like to see that story. It's kind of interesting. I've always liked her. And it's so. I'm curious to see it. Yeah, she has a lot of talent. Yeah. So I'm interested in seeing it.
So some other women that have lots of talent have a movie coming out that just went into production this week. Kathy Yan's Birds of Prey.
Oh, you mean the R-rated Birds of Prey?
So Margot Robbie shared a image on Instagram of Harley Quinn, of her as Harley Quinn, and then shortly after that debuted a short, very short little teaser that was kind of like a little music video montage of just images from the different characters in Birds of Prey debuted, and I think everybody got pretty excited. It seemed like everybody was into it. I was into it. I thought it looked cool.
It's stylish, and it's got a great cast, a really good cast.
Stylish and fun. They show like one image of one of the characters like down in some booze, and the Cassandra Cain character with a cast that says like "fuck you" and "asshole" and "bitch" on it. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, this is going to be hard R. This is going to be at," and
I'll believe it when I see it.
And the thing is, yes, here's the thing. Margot Robbie did say that when she pitched Christina Hodgson, who's writing the film, that she wanted an R-rated kind of girl gang movie. Yes, that's accurate. She pitched an R-rated movie. And then Kathy Yan at the U.S.-China Summit mentioned that reportedly, that it was going to be rated R. However, none of that is transcribed. There's no context for it. The video summit portion, she doesn't mention any kind of rating. So the problem with the rating thing is that there is no real confirmation that it's going to be R-rated. And the studio hadn't confirmed it. So I actually reached out to the studio. They actually meant to tell me off record, but it ended up
being on the record.
There was little misunderstanding there, but either way, the fact is like there is no confirmed rating. Obviously, the MPAA gives the rating at the end of the day, and the studio will decide what the rating is going to be at the end of the day. But nobody has confirmed officially in any official capacity that Birds of Prey is going to be rated R.
I mean, I could see it potentially being R. I guess it's more likely that would be R though than Black Widow. I was kind of surprised that we ran a Crazy Days and Nights story the other day too, because I mean that site is kind of it's a gossip site. I actually really like Crazy Days and Nights. I read it every day, but it's
it's a gossip rag.
You can't really take it that seriously.
In our story, we actually call it a gossip rag. And
I mean, do you honestly think that they would ever make a Black Widow movie R-rated? From
I
Marvel?
don't, and I'll tell you why. Because the Black Widow character has been in every PG-13 MCU iteration thus far. They've built the character on the backbone of that, and then to suddenly shift it to R for what? For like some bloody headshots and a couple F-bombs? Is there going to be a big Black Widow sex scene? I kind of doubt it.
It's not going to happen.
They're not going to turn that character into that when you have so many people, particularly young people, that are looking up to this character right now. It just doesn't make sense.
And it doesn't need to be honest.
No, it doesn't.
Really doesn't. Birds of Prey, I could see it, maybe. But even that though doesn't necessarily. It's at the end of the day, it's a comic book movie. It's not.
But it's a superhero.
It's not
movie.
The Nightingale, which needs that.
Listen, I spent an entire day on Twitter, and y'all really stress me the fuck out on Twitter. So let me just tell you that, okay? All day long dealing with that, like people just like arguing over the rating thing, and it was nuts. We just didn't need any more of that conversation going forward because there was just nothing being, not even the official word from WB about that, solved anybody's qualms. And I think the biggest problem is that people are wanting some kind of like bloodbath and like tits and ass and like all this other stuff. Like the thing is, even if Birds of Prey is rated R, and it could very well be rated R, but even if it is, it's going to be R light. It's going to be profanity.
In which case, though, what's the point of doing it, though?
Exactly, and that is my point of the whole thing. It's like, I don't have a problem with Birds of Prey being R, but is it going to be an earned R?
It makes me laugh, though, because it's like, I don't know what people are expecting. Do they think it's going to be like one of those like old like women in jail movies, like the Big Birdhouse?
Do you think this is going to be like a Verhoeven, like bloody explosion kind of thing?
It's totally not going to happen. Yeah, it would be so light. It would be the R-rated would be just to get F-bombs and a couple blood splatters.
And that's just not worth it. Like, okay, so my Alita Battle Angel review will be up tomorrow, and I can tell you there's one really well-placed, well-timed F-bomb in that movie, and you didn't really need any more.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there is an F-bomb in a PG-13 movie. There's beheadings. There's, like, all kinds of crazy shit in Alita Battle Angel where I feel like they really push the limits of a PG-13 in that sense. Like, it really is, it's not a safe, like, kind of carnage movie. It's like, they really go all out. And you can do that with a PG-13 now.
What's PG-13 now would have been R-rated when we were growing up. I mean, even
sure.
the last couple of Mission Impossible movies, I think would have for
Fast
sure
and
been
Furious
R-rated.
movies have got some pretty intense carnage there and things like that. And I just feel like
I mean, The Dark Knight was one when I saw that. That would have been R-rated back in the day.
God, it was like superhero heat.
Yeah.
It was an intense movie. So, listen, it's ironic that I argue this because most people that grew up with me know how much I'm a stickler for R-rated movies. I love them, but I love R-rated movies that need it, that earn that rating.
Not half-assed.
This R-rated light stuff is just, it's insulting. You're like, why did you even do it?
Yeah.
And you have to think about the box office. What is Warner Brothers thinking? They just crossed over $1 billion with Aquaman, which bested Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises in the overall box office take. And granted, Birds of Prey is a lower budget film, but you got to be thinking about the Chinese market. You got to be thinking about all that stuff. And if you're going R-rated, you're taking risks that is going to cost you money.
Well, they had to do Once Upon a Deadpool just to get Deadpool 2 into the Chinese market.
Now they're going to see some money come in from China because of that, too. I guarantee you.
And, also, I mean, I don't even think the Joker movie is going to be rated R, to be honest. I think they're just going to, it almost doesn't make financial sense, I guess.
If any of them were going to be rated R,
I would want it to be that
Joker,
one, but it's not going to be.
If you look at something like The Killing Joke, where he shoots Barbara Gordon, strips her naked, takes pictures, and
that's not going to happen.
And torture.
It's not going to be that dark, though.
Right? But I'm saying like that. That's something I could see from the comics. It'd be like, yeah, okay, I could see an R for that. That's not the Mark Hamill Joker of the Batman animated series. But I'll tell you, maniacally, that's some intense, sadistic shit.
I could see DC doing it. Never see Marvel doing it though. Because I feel like they would risk so much because it's such a brand too that people trust. They would,
and also, how are they going to put it on Disney Plus?
And they would risk so much. I mean, imagine how outraged some parents would be. Like, to be honest, they wouldn't risk any business like that. They just won't do it. And if people think they're going to do it, then they're crazy. This is not going to happen unless they start a new line under Fox. I guess which they could do. I just don't think it's going to happen.
And there's just so much we don't know about this Fox Disney merger at this point. Like. I mean, we could speculate all day, and people are writing, think pieces on that all day and all night, but there's just so much that we don't know, and we're not going to know, and they're probably still going to be figuring out after the merger. So, I mean, they're not going to have all their ducks in a row right after that. So, anyways, I think Birds of Prey looks cool. I reached out to WB. There is no confirmed rating, which I know that sounds like a no-duh, but...
I'm surprised you haven't visited the set yet.
Well, they just started shooting, so we'll see. In other news, we have it's kind of DCEU spin-off news. The person that kind of took the most flack for the DCEU, Zack Snyder.
And I'll say this, unearned flack. Yeah, he's doing a Netflix movie, Army of the Dead, I think.
Army of the Dead.
And it's about a bunch of mercenaries that go for a heist in like a zombie wasteland or something. Sounds cool.
In Vegas.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I would say totally cast dependent, but I guess if it's Zack Snyder, he's probably going to be able to assemble a pretty cool cast.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll get like a bunch of cool, macho guys, which is fine, and that's kind of what I would expect. Something really cool like that, and. I'm hip with it. I'm down with it. I'm a Zack Snyder fan. I've been a Zack Snyder fan.
Me too.
Long before the DCU, 300 Dawn of the Dead, which is, again, which what makes this cool, because, it's like going back to that genre.
Dawn of the Dead was way better than it ever should have been. I remember expecting that to be a disaster, and it was good. And I like 300 as well. I didn't care for Sucker Punch, but I loved. I actually really liked Watchmen.
I love Watchmen.
I liked Men of Steel a lot, and I like Batman v Superman. I mean, I'm one of the few. It's funny though because I visited the set of Justice League, and
he was there when you were there.
He was, and it's the stuff that I saw that never ended up in the movie. And it's just like there was a different version of that movie that was being planned that just we never got to see, unfortunately. No. Then again, I also kind of cringe when I see people saying release the Snyder Cut because, as we said a million times before, it does not exist in any releasable form. It would take tens of millions of dollars to put it out, and they're never going to do it.
Yes, there's absolutely stuff that is not in the film that was shot that is technically done for sure. But there's a lot that isn't. So, there is no cut to release. If anything, the hashtag, I've said this 1,000 times already, but the hashtag should be finish the Snyder Cut, not release it. Because releasing it as is the way it is now is not releasable.
They could release potentially an extended cut with more stuff in it, but it wouldn't be the
Snyder
Cut.
But it's still, the thing is, the Snyder Cut's never going to truly exist because he never got a chance to finish the film. Mm-hmm. Bottom line. And Joss Whedon went and made fucking Jossenstein Justice League, and I recently revisited Justice League, and I gotta tell
bad.
you,
it's really bad.
It was a horrible experience because, and the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, I guess because of everything that happened, I was kind of expecting disaster, and I walked away feeling like it was pretty decent. But each rewatch since has just downgraded it.
Well,
every time I rewatch it, I'm like, I see all the missed potential.
Well, I didn't give it a good review when I saw it originally. I think I gave it a 6, though, which is probably more than it deserved. But I was just kind of hoping that it would do well enough.
I gave it a 7.
I was just hoping that it would do well enough to kind of get things back on track, because I wanted, Affleck to continue and I wanted Cavill to continue, and it doesn't look like either of them will at this point. But it is an unwatchable movie now, though. It shows up on the Canadian HBO on Crave, and it's
so terrible.
It's unwatchable, and the CGI,
it's just so much
CGI with his mustache is unbelievable. That's why I laughed when I saw your shirt the other day, Super Stash. It's too bad you weren't wearing it right now, but it's just,
well, it's actually in one of the videos. So
it's unbelievable. It's just. Anyway, what a disaster!
But it's nice to have Zack back. I'm really happy he's back, because I do think Zack is he's a great talent.
He took so much unearned heat for that, and people got so nasty about it, and he had a hard time. Him and his wife, they suffered the loss of a child too, in the midst of all of this, and and that was really bothering me that fanboys, or a certain contingent of them, definitely not people that would listen to our show, but a contingent of them, had no empathy for him for what he was going through, and it was just disturbing, because at the end of the day, it's a movie. It's not as important as the life of a child.
Well, and then that's even what he said. At the end of the day, it's a movie. But I still think that I think that Zack, he posts on Vero a lot of Justice League stuff, and I think he feels really burned about what happened, and justifiably so. He had a plan, and it didn't get to happen, and and apparently, when Whedon came on, Whedon didn't like anything of what he saw in terms of what Snyder had, because they're two very different filmmakers, and I just think that
and Snyder's, the thing about Snyder too is, and and I'm not criticizing either of them for this, Snyder's very macho, right? His movies are very macho. As a man, he's very macho, and it's
a real man.
Well, no, but if you look at 300, it kind of it celebrates, it revels in that almost. And Whedon is not.
But that's the culture. That's also the Spartan culture.
But you see, Whedon could have never done that movie, and then Whedon is much more of a sensitive kind of type. And I'm not saying that either is wrong. I think that Whedon was very good for the Avengers.
I love the Avengers.
I don't think that Snyder could have necessarily. I don't think that Snyder could have necessarily done the Avengers, though. It would have been something very, very different.
I don't think I wouldn't have wanted to see Snyder's Avengers,
so,
to be honest with you.
It's just mixing those two sensibilities together and going from one to the other makes the movie such a mess. There were things about it that I liked. The opening credits I thought were kind of Snyderish a little bit, maybe, where you see the newspaper headlines on a world that's totally lost without hope. But even that, who's to say? Who knows what was included?
I feel like a lot of that was Whedon.
Right from the beginning, though, Whedon, when you seen the kid filming Superman, and he's like, "Oh, Superman, what are you?" Oh, and he's stuttering, and it's just so silly, and it's just so clearly Whedon, and and Superman smiling and all that, and the horrible effects. I just want to wipe it out of my mind. I'm amazed, though, that Aquaman was able to right the ship so much, because that was a great movie. It was a really fun movie, and
I fucking love Aquaman.
And people love it. So there is still some life in DCU, I would say.
Oh yeah, and you have Birds of Prey in production. You got Wonder Woman 84 coming,
and those could all do well. And Joker, I hope will do well too. There was some
Shazam's coming, which I think is going to be great.
Story out of I'm not so sure about Shazam, but story out of Sundance though is Zazie Beetz was giving an interview, and she said that she did say it as a bad thing. But she was saying, "Oh, it's a great script. We were rewriting it on the fly for Joker." I'm sure
daily.
I'm sure Warner Bros. Isn't very happy about that. But you know what? I have a lot of faith in that movie. I think that
I feel like it's more of an experiment film than anything.
And it is one of those movies that will either rise or fall. It's wholly dependent on Joaquin Phoenix's performance, and I think he's going to nail it. I just think he's. I just feel like
if you get the role of the Joker. Even Jared Leto, who I feel like he got a disservice because they cut a lot of his, tons of his.
Well, now he's going to be
out.
Morbius.
Now he'll be Morbius, yeah. But I just feel like they cut out a lot of. He didn't really get a fair shake at his Joker. But I feel like when you get that role, even though it doesn't feel like we saw the full potential of his performance, you see that these people that get the Joker role, they dive headlong into it.
And Phoenix will too. But I think Phoenix is going to be at least the best Joker since Heath Ledger. Not that he's up against much, but I think he'll be great. And I think it'll be an interesting, distinctive take on the character. Yeah. And I like the makeup. I know a lot of people don't, but I think it's great.
So the last thing we're going to talk about today, just briefly, we're not going to dive too much into it just because I'm so exhausted even talking about any of it. But apparently the Millennium released a statement that Bryan Singer, director Bryan Singer, is going to remain the director of their Red Sonja
Oh, but
adaptation.
did you see, though, today some news broke they were walking it back a little bit, where Lerner said he never read the statement that he put out to the press, which makes no sense, saying that it came off differently. They never said that they were going to fire Singer, but what THR did is they actually reviewed some casting agencies to see if people would actually work with Millennium on it, and for the most part, they heard that the agencies would, in fact, work with them, because technically he was never found guilty in a court of law, so there's not really much they can do. But a lot of agents said that they would dissuade their clients from being in it.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder who's going to end up in Red Sonja. I was talking to Paul, I was saying, watch Kevin Spacey will play Red Sonja in motion capture. And it's just, I don't know. It's
just round up all the problematic people in
Louis
Hollywood
C.K. and Charlie Rose.
Oh, God.
It's like the Grand Magus, something like that. It makes, I honestly, I'm kind of tired of Singer at this point. It sounds like he's just a nightmare to work with. Even if you don't even consider the other stuff, which, sounds pretty bad. He sounds like a nightmare of a person, and he sounds like a nightmare director to work with. Every story that I've ever heard of him has pretty much been negative.
Which is, like, even beyond the sexual abuse allegations.
Yeah.
Just his work ethic alone is, it has been problematic, and that's ultimately what got him fired from Bohemian Rhapsody, was that, all this shit that, not showing up and then
Tom
taking
Hollander,
off. And
Tom Hollander quit the movie, and he walked off the set, and they had to go and ask him to come back when they changed directors.
Yeah.
Because he's a screamer, and sounded like he was a tyrant. I don't think he should be directing Red Sonja, and I think there's probably a lot of other directors that would be better at it.
God.
I've seen movies by people here that could do a better job. I'll tell you, she would never do it, but could you imagine what a Jennifer Kent Red Sonja movie would look like?
She'd be a good, choice.
I don't think she would ever do it, though. I don't think that's her sensibility at all, but it would be mental.
There's NC-17. Honestly, pretty much anybody.
Shot in 133, person
pretty much anybody
cameras.
Beyond Bryan Singer. And I tweeted out after, I said, Red Sonja needs a Zack Snyder, not a Bryan Singer. A lot of people rallied behind that, and my implication in that statement is that not necessarily that it has to be Zack Snyder, but a Zack Snyder, somebody with style, somebody that can really bring it home. And I think he would be a great choice. But there's a lot of other filmmakers who can do it, and a lot of people kind of went on the attack on that comment, saying doing the whole "what about a woman" thing. And I never said you couldn't be a woman. I just said it needs a Zack Snyder, somebody that can do style, somebody that can take on a visionary take for the character.
One thing about Zack Snyder, I'll say though, if you've been to the set, which I have, is that a Zack Snyder movie is also very much a Deborah Snyder movie. She's the producer, and it's a really close-knit team, and most of the decisions go by her too. So I would say that they have a pretty good partnership.
Yeah, a good filmmaking duo. But I think there's a lot of different filmmakers out there that could bring justice to Red Sonja. I don't. The implication that it would have to be a woman, I think, is just stupid. That's like saying that any movie that has a male lead must be directed by a man. I think that's fucking absolutely ridiculous.
I saw a lot of movies at Sundance, I think, that kind of disprove that fact. Blinded by the Light, female director, but male lead. Right, and beautifully done. Beautifully done.
Doesn't have to be a male, just like a female lead doesn't have to be a female.
Well, the Nightingale was a female lead, but there were 3 leads, and 2 of them were male, and it was perfectly well done as well. Yeah. But then I saw, I've seen other movies that played here that had, Brittany Runs the Marathon, I believe, has a male director, and that's being considered a very good movie too. So it's not.
I just think
it's whomever has a feel for the material. I think.
Right.
That said, I do think that I liked the 4% challenge that they said that they wish the studios would commit to making one movie in the next 18 months.
Oh yeah,
and that makes total sense to me.
And that's a very easy, achievable kind of goal that everybody could make happen. But and here's the other thing, something that you got to consider. And people were kind of coming at me like, oh, you're saying that. They're not getting these chances that they should have gotten, and I'm like, okay, they weren't. Maybe even 5 years ago. But let's look at the top movie genre right now. It's the comic book genre. The Black Widow movies being directed by a female. Captain Marvel has a male-female duo director team that's coming out. Birds of Prey is being directed by a female. Wonder Woman 84 directed by a female. So you don't have as much stock in that argument anymore because those opportunities have opened up. Now, if we were talking 5 years ago, it'd be a different story. But the tide has changed, which I think is for the better. But I also don't. I really would hate to see every time a female or male-led project comes about to say that it has to be the same person that has the same sex organ between their legs to direct it. I think that's that's kind of going backwards, and you're setting a weird precedent that really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's whomever has affinity for the genre and has affinity for the material. But, you know, I have to say, you know, that's the thing. Blinded by Light really kind of flies up and puts everything for a spin. You know, it's a male-driven movie about Bruce Springsteen music. You know, that's about as male as you can get.
Yeah.
And she did an amazing job with it. You know, and it's
awesome.
And you know, and it's just, and that's, you know, but then again, you know, you have something again like Brittany Runs a Marathon, everybody loves, and that was a male directing it. So it's whomever has affinity for the genre, whoever has empathy for the genre,
or whoever just fits the style, whoever can, you know, some people just work better with, you know, specific groups, and it's more of a personality thing than it is a gender thing. It's always going to be that way. It's like this person is a little more quiet, they're not really ready for a bigger production, then, you know, you wouldn't give it to them. Not so much about gender, it's about their personality. Do they have the traits to actually to do this? Are they somebody that has that kind of oomph?
I remember,
you know,
reading an interview years ago with Ellen Burstyn, okay, who you know, was in The Exorcist, and anyway, she did the movie Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore with Martin Scorsese, right? And she was the producer on the movie too, and it was about a waitress, you know, and a single mother, female-driven story. And then Scorsese wanted to direct it, and she said to him, "What makes you, you know, what gives you the right to direct this movie about women? What do you know about women?" And then Scorsese told her, he says, "I know nothing about women, but I'd like to learn." And then she said it was when he said that she was like, okay, he's the right director for this movie. And I think that if anybody goes into the movie with that kind of attitude, you know, that it's not necessarily a movie for me, but I'd like to kind of try to open my mind and do the best version of this that I can, then I think that's when a really good movie gets made.
And I think like the performers themselves will help inform the filmmaker too. You know,
absolutely.
Like you get the right cast together, they help make that movie every bit as much as the filmmaker. So you know, you get them, they're going to help inform and direct you as much as you're directing them. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good measure. So anyways, that is going to be it for us here at Sundance. As you can see, me and the Bald are together.
Do we have any listener questions?
We don't have any listener questions because I didn't post anything up before we got started because I had to connect all this stuff together. So I'm sorry we don't have any questions because I didn't give you the chance to ask any. But we will have some for next week.
So this is going up on Friday, I guess, right?
That's the go.
So you'll probably see, if you go over to joeblow.com, there's a Battle Angel Alita review up, right, from you?
Yes, that will be up tomorrow.
And then mine should be up, I guess, a week from then, I think, because I just got my invite for the 7th, so
nice.
I'll post my take.
I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed as much as I
we'll see.
It's really fun.
We'll talk about that. We'll for sure talk about that though next time on the podcast.
It's gonna be an 8 on 10 for me if we're talking numbers.
That's good. Well, yeah, I was at a blogger party last night. We had a big talk about the Rotten Tomatoes metric, and so many people that are on Rotten Tomatoes are frustrated with it, just like we are. You know, that there's no middle ground, right? It's either black or white. You know, there's no shade of gray.
Just
but anyway,
not the way films work.
No, it's not, because I've seen a lot of movies that I was mixed on, but they had things in them that I loved. You know,
yeah.
And even Velvet Buzzsaw, you know, was a movie that I didn't like, but there were bits about it that I loved.
Yeah.
So
I think there was potential for a better movie in there somewhere, but there's things that stand out.
Yes,
particularly really Gyllenhaal's performance.
Yes, Gyllenhaal's performance was great. Yes.
So,
and you know how painful it is for me to say that. No, his performance was actually
he's
really
your best buddy.
Yeah.
So that is going to be it for us this week. Please go to iTunes, give us a review. That would be really appreciated. Just helps kind of build our stock and keep us going. Check us out on the YouTube channel as well. That's where this will go. I wish we could do the video every week. I know you guys want to stare at our beautiful beards and bald heads every week, but this is a very rare occasion, so we figured we'd take advantage of it. And then also, please make sure to follow us on Instagram. We're now on Instagram, so you can see crazy pictures and memes, and we're going to try to do some news updates and some reaction stuff and the stories and things like that. So we're going to try and have some fun with Instagram. So look for the Beard and the Bald podcast on Insta and follow us. We're trying to follow back people, as we get going here. So we're going to follow you, get to know you guys as you get to know us as well. So make sure that you do that, okay? Please. I'm asking nicely. I said please. That's twice I said please.
We're nice people.
You're nice. Anyways, thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next week.